Hello, hello. I am Natalie, the Ginger Quilter, and today we are going to make these awesome hot pads, the coming in hot pads. Get it? So we are going to make these with some really basic fabric pieces. This is great for scraps. If you are a quilter or a sewer and you have some cotton fabric scraps, perfect. If not, you're welcome to grab a kit. I still have some available in my shop. I'll make sure the link is down in the comments, but we are going to have a good time. And the one thing that is cool about this is you might look at this and think, oh my goodness, I am going to have to figure out how to sew these triangles. Those are such mini triangles, and I'm going to have diamonds and sewing on a bias, but that is not how this works. Quilters love blocks and projects that look a lot harder than they really are. And it's all about how you sew it and then cut it and sew it back together. So we're gonna have fun with this project. And these are quick. You are gonna love how quick these come together. They're great for gifts for your neighbors or for your kid's teacher or for your own kitchen for Christmas. So let's go ahead and get started talking about supplies. Okay, I'm gonna need 4 5-inch squares. And these can be Christmas or not. Obviously I chose Christmas for Jingle and Mingle, but these would be great for any season. Okay, I've got 4 5-inch squares. Then for my finished project, I'm gonna need backing fabric, and you're gonna need a 9 by 9-inch square for that. Okay, so here's my backing for this project, 9 by 9 inches. Then we need binding. So we need, that's what's here, I'll show you on the red. That's all the way around here, 1 binding strip. This is 2.5 inches by 43, which is the whole width of a normal bolt of quilter's fabric. Or you can piece this together if you are using several pieces, that's totally fine. You just want it to be about 43 inches by 2.5, okay? And then we need our interfacing or our batting. You will need 1 piece of Insulbrite or some other brand of the insulated batting. This, you can kind of hear it, it's got some crinkle in it. That's because there's some kind of, I assume it's aluminum lining in here, and that's what's gonna stop yourself from burning yourself when you pull the cookies out of the oven. You don't want to scorch your hand. And then you'll need 1 same size square, 9 by 9 of cotton batting, okay? And those just go together. For some reason, you need both. And I'm okay with that because I don't want you to burn your hand because I told you how to make a hot pad and then I'm gonna feel really bad. So for everybody's benefit, make sure you have cotton batting and the Insulbrite. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm ready to jump in. Oh, one last thing. I just have a little scrap piece. That is for this little hanging tag if you want to, if that matters to you for a hot pad. So you have an option. This is 2.5 by 5. This is like way more than you're gonna need. So really, truly, a scrap is great. So let's jump in. Okay. So with our 4 squares, our 5-inch squares, we're gonna pair them up into 2s. So I'm gonna mix in here. So I'm gonna put the pretty sides of the fabric together. That's called right sides together. See, those are paired up and I've got those lined up perfectly. So the back side of my fabric is what is visible. And I'm gonna do that with both sets of 2. So my 4 squares are all matched up. Just like that. So let's jump back and grab a ruler, and any size ruler is really fine. Honestly, this might be a little small, just because I'm going to be drawing on the diagonal of my squares, okay? So it's fine. I'm just going to have to like drag the ruler a little bit. So grab a pen. I recommend a fabric pen is great. If you don't have a fabric pen, use a pencil. If you don't have a pencil, just use any ballpoint pen you have. This part is not going to be visible on your fabric, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just use what you got. I use ballpoint pens all the time and it's fine, truly. Okay, so what we want to do is draw a diagonal line from top to bottom in one direction, okay? So, let's see, I'll move back here so you guys can see what I'm doing. And like I said, because my ruler's kind of small, I'm gonna have to scooch it, but that's okay. All right, so now repeat that on both coupled fabrics here. Okay. All right, I know it's gonna be hard to see, but I do have a line drawn there. So now it's time to go to the sewing machine. This is the fun part, right? What you're gonna wanna do is figure out a 1/4 inch seam. This is the tried and true total standard stitch width or seam width, seam allowance of quilting is a 1/4 inch. So this is very typical, and a lot of machines, when you turn a machine on for the first time, it's not at a 1/4 inch. So it might take some practice of like sewing on some scrap fabric and then measuring the width of your seam just to make sure you have a 1/4 inch, because this design is going to get a little dodgy if we're doing a lot more or a lot less. So, okay, and when we're sewing, I'm going to use this fabric to show you. It's a little bit easier to see. You can see my line. It's faint, but you can see it. So I am going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides of my line. I am not sewing on the line, so bear that in mind. We're not sewing on the line. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch to the right and a 1/4 inch to the left, okay? So that means I'm going to go, I will end up feeding the fabric through the machine twice, one for each direction. Okay, so here I go. Let me make sure I've got my 1/4 inch seam. There's several ways to get a 1/4 inch seam. It can be the foot that you use. It can be how you drag, like the distance that you set the seam away from the foot. I don't want to confuse you, but your machine probably has a setting very simply for a 1/4 inch seam. So let's go ahead and go. I don't use a lot of pins when I'm quilting, but that is a very common thing to do, is to pin it and then sew it. So here I've got my seam, there's the light. I've got the seam on one side and I'm gonna do it on the other side, and then I'll show you. On the next one, I'm gonna pin it to show you how I would do that. Okay, so can you see that? How I've got a seam on both sides of my line. Maybe the white fabric is hard to see. It's like a lighter backing, but don't worry, you'll see a little bit better on the green. Okay, so now I'm just gonna pin this one just to show you how you do that. I don't always do that, but I'm just gonna pin to make sure that my fabrics stay together. Okay. Now I'm gonna do the same thing, 1/4 inch on either side of the line that I drew. Okay, there's one. And now that I've sewn one, I can take my pins out because my fabric's not going anywhere. All right, let's hope that we can see the seam a little bit better on the green. Yep, there you go. You can see that I've got two seams 1/4 inch away from the center. So now I want to trim on that line, okay? So the line that we drew, we're gonna cut right on it. And I've got a little cutting mat over here, so that's what you probably can't see. Maybe if I scooch. Whoa, almost lost my iron there. That's okay. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna use my rotary cutter and a straight edge and cut on the line that I drew. So I'm creating two triangles. This is how we make half square triangles as quilters. Ta-da! Isn't that awesome? Okay, so do that for both sets of your fabrics. And there we go. 2 triangles. Well, 4 triangles. 2 from each fabric set. That was my iron. Let's go grab that, because I actually need that now. So grab an iron to press your seams. Any iron is gonna do. This is like a normal clothing iron. Quilters don't use special irons. We just use the normal kind. Okay, and I have a pressing mat, but your regular ironing machine is gonna, no, sorry, ironing board is gonna work great for that. Okay, gotta rearrange all my supplies here. So here's my pressing mat, and I'm gonna warm up my iron. Okay, so we wanna iron these flat, and triangles are very picky because the way fabric is woven, fabric can hold its shape pretty well if you're cutting straight or like vertical or horizontal. But as soon as you start messing with the diagonal, then it starts kind of getting crazy. So we just want to be careful with our half square triangles because we are dealing with triangles and we're on the 45-degree angle. We don't want to like stretch them or pull them because they will truly stretch. So we're going to treat these. I followed one creator one time that would call them her precious little babies. That once they're triangles, they're precious little babies and we treat them so nice. Okay, so the way I like to do it is to press to one side, press this seam allowance to one side. So I am going to start with my white fabric kind of down on the surface and then kind of pull very carefully, slightly pull that back pull the green back as I press it down flat. Okay, and the goal is to press it, not iron it. I am not the best poster child for doing that because a lot of times I'm like, forget it, I'm just gonna go in here. But that does give you a nice crisp line and it's gonna keep your triangles straight or, you know, not stretched out. So we'll repeat that the same way, carefully pressing but not stretching. That's the goal. Okay, there's our second one. Now let's do the same thing here. Number 4. So now, after we get these pressed, we're actually going to repeat the same process that we just did to get 4 triangles in a square instead of 2. Okay, see how we did that? Okay, so now what I want to do is pair up my 2 different squares, line them up perfectly, draw the diagonal line, and sew a 1/4 inch away from the diagonal line, and cut it again, and then we're going to get 4 triangles in our square. All right, so what we want to do is line these up. You're going to want to line up your center seams together. And again, you want the pretty sides of the fabric touching each other so that all you see are the back sides of the fabric. Okay. So we're going to line those up. And it helps because we pressed the fabric to one side, we pressed our seam allowance to one side, you should kind of have little like seams in the center here on this diagonal line that kind of hook together almost. You can feel them butting up against each other. That's called nesting your seams, and that helps us make sure that they are nice and aligned. Okay, it's probably a good idea to pin these ones because you want to make sure that where your seams lined up in the center, those diagonal lines, you don't want those like shifting and being crazy. So it is a good idea to pin these ones. Okay. And you know what? I probably should have drawn the line before I pinned it because then my ruler isn't going to lay flat. So I'm going to do that on this one and then I'll fix the other one. Okay. Whoops, I was doing that backwards. Okay. So I'm gonna grab my ruler. I forgot I did have a longer ruler here. And just draw corner to corner, and we are going against that intersecting the seam, okay? So I want that line to intersect the midpoint that we just sewed. Okay, got that drawn. Now I'm gonna try this one. Let's see how it goes with the pins. Yeah, I think I can do that. I have to tell you about this pen. This is the pen that will never die. I almost threw this pen away several times because I think, no, it really is dried out. And then it always comes back to life. So this is my handy dandy fabric pen, which is great. All right, so let's go ahead and sew. Now, on this new set, we've got our line, and we want to sew a 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides, okay? Same as before. Okay, I've got my first one done. Can you see those lines? Now I'm gonna do my second one. This is where I didn't pin this one, so I really am flying by the seat of my pants here. I like to call myself a type B quilter, because you know a type A person is very meticulous, very perfectionist, planned out everything. I would love to be a type A person. I'm just not, and I've come to accept that. So that's why I call myself a type B quilter. I'm like, pins, what are those? I don't need pins, I can figure it out. So I strongly think that done is better than perfect, and we're just gonna do our best and make it fun, right? Because if we're all caught up in the perfectionism of quilting and like precision, and I mean, obviously you need a certain level of precision, but if it's gonna make you crazy, you're not gonna have fun. So that's why we don't make ourselves crazy with quilting. I have kind of a new mantra that is like, quilting is not that serious. And it's not because quilting is not important. Obviously, I've built my entire business around it, but it's because like we quilt for fun, right? We don't quilt because we're solving cancer or because we are, you know, curing world hunger. We quilt because it feeds our soul, maintains our sanity, and it's fun. So it's important not to take quilting so serious that you make yourself crazy about it. I mean, crazy with it. You can be crazy about it. Different meanings of crazy. Okay, so, oh wait, no, I don't want to put that away yet. So now I'm going to trim on the line I drew again, and you're going to see now we've got 4 triangles to our square. And I'm not going to make my iron fall off this time. All right. I'm sorry that I don't have a wider camera lens. I mean, we only can do what technology can do, but it would be so awesome if I had a whole team of camera people to, like, you know, show you everything, but it's just me. So you're stuck with me, and we're gonna do our best on the camera angles. Okay, so I trimmed on the line that I drew. And you ready to see? You ready to see? Hold on. You have to wait. Ta-da! Look how cute those are. So these are our 1/4 square triangles. That's what they're called. So they're so cute, and we have 4, and they should be identical because we did the fabrics in all the same order, right? Okay. Or no, I'm sorry. There are some inverse. There's some inverse, but that's on purpose, okay? But we have all the same fabrics there. So now we're going to take our iron again, and we're going to press them. However, on this time, we're going to press our seams open. So last time we just like shoved this little seam allowance to one side. This time we want to press our seams open. So you're going to separate like that and go with your iron to get them really flat. That is because we have a lot of layers of fabric that are going to be going together, and it's going to be really bulky if we have the seam allowance to one side. So let's go ahead and press those flat. Here we go. And oftentimes I'll just I'll open the seam allowance myself and kind of finger press it and then go in with my iron. That is what is the easiest way to do it. And again, we're pressing, we're not ironing. Obviously a little movement isn't going to kill your block, but just want to be careful with our precious little babies. So yeah, go ahead and separate that seam allowance and then go in with your iron. And I'm going to let that sit just a second. I'm not going to let it roast my fabric, but I need a Diet Coke. I'm always sewing with Diet Coke. All right, so there's number 2. Let's go ahead and grab number 3. And doing 4 at a time is not bad at all. Sometimes you gotta press seams open and you got 60 blocks, and it's it feels like a whole day project. I mean, it's not really, but that's how it feels. All right, number 3 and our last one. Could not get my finger in there to separate it out. Okay. And here we go. Press, press, press. Sing yourself a little song. Happy birthday. No, sing us a Christmas carol because it's Christmas in July. All right, here we go. So now we get to decide how we want them lined up. You can orient these however you want, but we want 2 by 2 to make our hot pad like this. But I will show you, so I arranged it so that I had matching colors here and matching colors here. Okay, so, yep, there we go. Hold up. There, that was so hard. Okay, so I have it all lined up for you. So you can kind of see it gives you that argyle effect, which I love, is so fun. So what we want to do now is we're going to sew these 2 together, and then we're going to sew these 2 together, press our seams, and then we're going to sew the 2 sets together. Okay, simple enough. 1/4 inch seams still, because remember that's our standard. So if I've got my 2 pieces and I want to sew them together here in the middle, I'm going to fold them pretty sides together, line up my seams as best as I can, and then sew a 1/4 inch seam right there. Okay, again, pin if you want to use pins. Don't if you don't. All right, I think I missed the very first part, so I'm gonna, there. Okay, I went over that. So we've got, here's our first set. We're gonna repeat for our second. If you haven't guessed by now, this is pre-recorded. I really wanted to be live, but you know, it's summer and mom life got in the way and some plans that we had, so, oops. See, sometimes we should pin so that our fabrics don't go crazy. So I'm just gonna unpick those last few stitches and fix it. See, I make mistakes all the time. If you need to unpick and redo, do not be ashamed. Anyway, I wanted to do this live, and we just had some other plans, so I am pre-recording. However, I am going to have internet. I just won't be at home. So I'm going to be in the comments. I'll be answering questions. Feel free to pop in any questions and I'll make sure that I am responding as best as I can for that. Okay? So here's our second set. So now, this actually works really well. I'm going to make this my little poster board. Now I want to sew both sets together, but it's a good idea to iron them first. Okay? So same way that I opened up my seams and pressed that open, we're going to do the same thing with this one. Ironing can feel, very tedious, but it does make a difference. Sometimes when I'm feeling more like lazy as a quilter, I will do 2 or 3 blocks and then iron. But if you want really crisp, really good lines, truly you gotta iron every seam. So, all right, so now I'm gonna sew these together, line them up just like before. Make sure that your center seam is also aligned because you want that to be nice and precise so that you get the nice argyle effect, the diamond effect here. Okay, are you ready to see the whole thing? Ba-da-da. Look how fun that is. Okay, I am loving the plaids up here. I am such a sucker for plaid. I love plaid. And I just love how this framed out nicely. And you gotta agree, this looks way harder than it was, right? So final press of our top, we're gonna do the same thing, open up that seam that we just sewed and press it flat. Okay, and when you get to the center, where all the seams met, you're gonna realize why we had to press things open and why we had to press. There are 8 seams, I think, all colliding into one, so it does get bulky. That's why we're careful with how we press our seams. Okay, there we go. I am actually gonna give it a press on the front side too, because that can add to the real quick, or to the real crisp feeling of it. Okay. We are ready to layer this into a quilt sandwich and then we're going to quilt it. Okay? All right. So now we're going to grab the other fabrics that we had. We need our backing and our 2 battings. I don't know why that got 3 fingers, but it did. Backing and 2 battings. We need 3 more layers right now. And I meant to press my backing fabric before I started and I didn't, so I'm just going to give that a real quick press. Get my creases out, at least for the most part. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is called the quilt sandwich. Can I scoot back a little? There we go. So we're gonna start and put this down. This is our backing, and we want pretty side down. Okay, now we're gonna do our Insul Bright, our insulated batting, then our regular cotton batting. Smooth it out on the way, along the way, and then put our top. You want to make sure that your 3 layers, the batting, and the backing, are wider than the actual top of your project. So now I really do need pins for this part. Otherwise, it's going to be a shifty mess. So grab some pins. I use straight pins. You can use safety pins. You will probably stab yourself on accident if you're using straight pins, but that's just, I like straight pins because they go in really easily and they come out really easily. So what I'm going to do is just pin all 4 layers together in a few different spots. So I'm going to probably start here. I'll pin here, 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 here. So I'll do 9. Yeah, 3 by 3, just to make sure this all stays together. And you do want to make sure all the layers are smooth as you're going. And this is going to hold everything together so that when we stitch the quilting, which is what holds all the layers together, that we're going to get straight seams and it's going to look really cute and really professional. Okay, I'm on my last row. Make sure that's nice and smooth. This is a really fun project to do when you kind of need just like an easy evening project. When I was making my samples, I like turned on Netflix and I was just rocking out doing my sewing, because it doesn't take, once you know how to do it, like you don't have to think that hard about it, right? So you just kind of listen to Netflix in the background and go into autopilot, which is a lot of fun. Okay, I'm all pinned together. Now I'm going to show you one of the previous projects to show you how I quilted this. My dog just joined us. Hopefully he behaves. Okay, so look and see how I've got these seams, right? Because those are the seams we just sewed. Similar to how we sewed a 1/4 inch away from the drawn lines, I've sewn a 1/4 inch away from all of my seams. And to show you on the back what that's going to look like, it gives you this really cute plaid argyle crisscrossy design. Okay, you can quilt this however you want. You can draw doodles, you could write your name, you could, you know, there's all sorts of ways to quilt this. I just wanted this to be simple and stylish, so this is how I did it. So along all the seams, we'll just go a 1/4 inch away. I'm going to start on a corner and go this way, corner and go this way, and then we'll fill in our other ones. But starting, you know, corner to corner is just going to secure that fabric really well. And you don't want to, like if you start on the little stuff, you might have puckers on your fabric later on, so it's better to start on the big stuff. All right, so for this style of quilting, you don't need a special foot. You don't need to change anything about your sewing machine. You should be able just to go the exact same way. I do like to lengthen my stitch length a little bit, because I think when you're doing stitching that's just visible, I just think it looks nicer. So I'm going to put my stitch length at 3 millimeters. This is totally a style thing, not at all necessary. If you don't know how to do that on your machine, don't stress, just do what was already there. All right. So you can pull out your pins as you sew close to them. You're not really supposed to sew over them. Do I? Yes, but you really shouldn't, because it can break your needle and it's not good for your machine if you happen to hit it. So do as I say, not as I do. Don't sew over your needles or your pins, but just pull them out as they are. As you go over that seam, or as you're about to cross that seam, the stitching is going to hold it together. You don't need the pins anymore. Okay, so I just did one seam down that center line, and now I'm going to flip it and do the second seam down this center line. No, I gotta flip it the other way. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I did both sides of this first seam. Now I'm going to do this one. And I'm going to take a little Diet Coke sip break. Always quilting with Diet Coke. I really should be sponsored by them. I don't do like a lot of sponsorships or anything, but I feel like I'm always repping Diet Coke. Not sure I've achieved like the same business prowess you need to be like an influencer supported by Diet Coke, but I feel like I qualify, you know? So tell me in the comments what your like crafting or sipping or like beverage of choice is, right? Some people are really aspirational and drink water. Like that's really cool for them. I do drink water, just not as much as I should. I know. It'll make my hair better, my skin better, my whole life better, but I just think Diet Coke tastes better. Okay, so we've got our big X done. I can pull that pin out. So we've got the X done. One thing I did want to point out, I did not do I did not do the seams that go like north and south, east and west. I just did the diagonals. So if you did do that, it's gonna look great, but that's just not how I did it. So I said to do this on every seam. I did every seam except the up and down. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do are these seams. And is that all of them? Yeah, I think once I get this like diamond done, then the whole thing will be done. That's really good. Next one. I think you can see how this would be kind of zen, like just repeating this over and over with your Netflix, you know, or a podcast in your ears. You just kind of coast. That's why I love quilting. Okay, this is our last seam. All right. Dun, da, da, da. Look how fun that is. So now I'm gonna say, let's trim it first. Then I'm gonna just sew the whole way around, just to kind of hold those edges together. It will make binding easier if we've done that. So let's go ahead and trim it, and then we will do like a final seam all the way around. Then we're gonna attach our binding, okay? So grab your cutting mat or scissors. Scissors work too. And we are going to just trim this out. If you want it to be perfectly 8 inches square, you could measure 8 inches. I'm just gonna cut my straight edges and make sure that my corners are 90 degrees. And then we're gonna call it good. All right, last one. All right, so now I'm gonna sew, this is trash, these are just my scraps. I'm gonna sew just a seam all the way around the edge. It'll just make it easier to bind. You could do a 1/4 inch. You could also do it a little bit smaller because it's gonna be covered by your binding. So yeah, up to you. I'll probably do it a little bit smaller, and then it won't be seen when we're done binding it. We're just all the way there, all the way down. Okay, and my seams were not super straight, but it's gonna get the job done of holding that together. So, okay, now we're gonna grab our binding strip, okay? Our 2.5 by 42, 43, 44, something like that. I'm gonna set those pins over there. So we're gonna grab our iron one more time. I think it's our last time with our iron. So 2.5 inches wide. And what we're gonna do is take our iron and just press it together skinny ways so that we have that fold all the way down the center, okay? So my whole binding strip ironed in half. Now I'm gonna, on one side, we're gonna open this and fold this down into a little triangle, okay? Just like that. So we're just gonna press it like that, and then we'll fold it and press it again. Here, there, you can see me better. I'm gonna fold my little triangle into this, press it. So it looks like this. Now I just wanna fold it back up again. So you're gonna have it, it's gonna look like that, okay? This is gonna make it so that all of our edges are finished really nicely. There are other ways to finish your edges on binding, but with such a small project, it is so fussy and you're like working with not a lot of space, so this is the easier way to do it. Okay, so here is our binding strip. What we wanna do first is we're gonna sew it onto the back. Okay, I'm gonna take my triangle side And you see how I've got the folded side here and I've got my open side here. I'm going to line up the open sides folded on my rough edge of the outside of my hot pad, okay? And this is on the back. We want to make sure it's on the back. So when you're deciding where to start, I would start with your triangle about halfway, your triangle edge here, about halfway on one side, okay? And we're gonna start sewing like right here. So this will kind of be flapping in the wind here, and that's good. That's what you want. So we're gonna start, line it up like this, and then start sewing here and turn the corner, okay? I will show you how to turn the corner. Don't worry, I'm gonna take my camera to show my hands because it is a little confusing. Well, it's not confusing, but don't be scared. It just, you need to be shown how to do it. So let's sew right, well, I'm gonna move the camera now, okay? Alrighty, so here we go. See how we've got half, we're gonna start halfway down on one side, line this up, okay? And we're gonna start sewing about right here. So put that down. We want 1/4 inch seam. There we go. And we're gonna sew to the corner. However, when we get to the corner, we're gonna draw with our seam, we're gonna draw a little 45-degree angle. Let me show you what I mean on a piece of paper. All right, you can see that I am really truly a gifted drawing artist. But okay, so here's our hot pad, right? And here's our binding strip that we're sewing on. This might be a little high, but that's okay. So here's the seam. The green is the seam that we're sewing. We're gonna sew, 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 and then right when we get down here, we're gonna go 45 degrees angle, degree angle off. Okay, so we're not gonna sew all the way to the edge. We're gonna stop our needle right there, turn our hot pad, and sew off right to the corner. Okay, does that make sense? I'm gonna walk you through it, don't worry, but that's gonna give us perfect mitered corners. Mitered corners look like this. So you've got that perfect fold right there in the corner, okay? So we've got our sewing, our binding fabric all lined up here. And let's go. Let me make sure my pedal's all where I need it to go. Okay, we're sewing. Don't go too fast. Don't get ahead of yourself. Especially when you're about to get here to a corner, we're gonna slow down. And right when we think that we're about 45 degrees from the corner, we're gonna put our needle down. My sewing needle is down. I'm gonna lift up my presser foot and turn it and sew right off to the corner. Okay, I'm gonna show that to you so you can see what I was talking about. Okay, so I sewed, 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 and then went right off the corner. My stitch length is a little bit long, but that's because I was sewing for the quilting. That's all right. All right, so stitch, stitch, stitch off to the corner. And now I will show you what we do. So we sewed it like this, remember? Now I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna fold this up so I get this little triangle and then pull it right back down so that these edges are flush up here, and then pin it like this, okay? We're gonna do that same process on all 4 corners. And when we start sewing, we are gonna start as if there was nothing weird about this at all. We're gonna start here and sew all the way down. No funny business on angles until we get down here where we're gonna do that same thing where we stop and then turn and go off the corner. Okay, clear as mud? Let's do this. I'm gonna back stitch a little bit because I'm not sure that got through there. All right. So I can pull out that needle. I'm sorry that my machine is shaking the camera a little. I'll try and go slower. Okay, we're right here near the end. I'm gonna keep going. And I'm lifting this up to kind of peek where I'm at with the bottom layer. I'm about 45 degrees, turn, and go off the edge. Okay, see how that, I've got my little angle there. We're gonna do the same thing, lift it up, make that triangle, and then pull it back down. Whoops, got a little funky. Pull it back down, and then you can pin it in place here. And I start a little bit on the fabric, then I back stitch and come back on. That just, I don't know, it's how my machine seems to work the best. So I'll not try and shake the machine too bad. Okay, I'm about to sew my last seam, so I'm going to sew about this far in, and then we're going to take a pause, okay? Okay, so now I'm just scooting that back. So now what I'm going to do is I need to trim this side right here because I'm going to slip. I want this to fit perfectly right in here, in this little fold that I made, but it's too long. So I'm just going to trim this. Be careful you don't trim it too short. You can always go shorter. It's like bangs. Be careful you don't trim too short. Okay, I'm going to go a little shorter. Okay, so now see how we made this fun little pocket with our triangle ironing. Oh bother. Okay, I was close. We just need one more little snip. There we go. Okay, we made this cool little pocket. We're gonna fold this in here. Okay, and just make sure that lays real nice. Now we're gonna finish this seam. Okay, so with that all tucked in, nice and pretty, now we'll finish. All right, so I want to show you. I got a little pucker here. I can go ahead and unstitch that and fix it, or the trick is it's not going to be seen. Because look, it didn't pucker on the back side and we're not going to see the inside, so I'm not going to sweat it. Okay, so now we have the finishing part where we're going to turn our binding over to the front. We're going to, so kind of flip it inside out like this, and we're going to bind it. So you can use pins or binding clips or whatever you want to hold this down, and we're just going to do a little top stitch. So we're going to stitch real close to the edge here just to hold it down, and I'll show you how that worked on my sample. So you can see I just stitched all the way across, and there's like the slightest little hiccup that you're going to hit with the corners, and that's okay. I'm going to walk you through it, but that's going to give you those great mitered corners, okay? So let's go ahead and go. I'm going to use pins to show you how I would use them. Like I said, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You're just going to pin this into place. See how that holds it together? Okay. So again, we're going to start like in the center of one of our sides so that the corners have plenty of room to move when we get to our corners. Okay, so I've moved my needle over closer to the edge because I'm not really measuring how far I am from the edge. I'm just eyeballing the typical top stitch width is like 1/8 of an inch. That's how far you are from like the folded edge. But I've found that I just eyeball it, but I certainly was more, I measured more when I was newer, so. Okay, so now we're going to stitch this down, and then when we have about this much left, that's when we're going to fuss with our corner, okay? So you can see that this is kind of just like a rounded bit here. I'm going to move my camera. There we go. Okay, so we want to get that nice mitered corner. So what we want is to like flatten this out as if we were going to sew this all the way down. And when you do, you should get this little triangle shape right here. That's what you want. So you flatten it down, and then this is gonna, you're gonna keep this inner fold straight all the way down, and that'll create your corner. And then you're gonna pinch that and keep that corner folded up. So now you have that perfect mitered corner right there. Perfect fold. And then you can go ahead and pin it. So that then when you come around the corner with your machine, you're going to go stitch, 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 stitch. And the only thing you have to worry about is just making sure you get over this edge here and then carry on your way. It's super easy. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'm coming to my corner. Don't panic. Everything's fine. I'm just going to keep sewing. And as soon as I've caught that fabric that was folded over, then I know I can turn. Okay? And I'm going to repeat that same thing. Pull my pin out. And this is the side that has my joined edge. So I'm going to make sure I pin that too. I don't want that causing me trouble. Oh, that didn't work. Huh, well, it is actually holding. It's just all the way buried in there. That's fine. All right. As you come through this part where you did join your ends, it's going to be pretty thick. It's okay, just keep going. Okay. Okay, we're right here near the edge again. Remember, we're going to pull this flat like this. That creates our little triangle down here, boop, and fold that on up. Just like that, okay? Once I've caught that edge, I know I can turn and do the rest. All right, you guys, before we finish up our binding, before we finish the whole thing, I'm going to show you how to do your little tab, okay? The little hanging tab. I almost forgot to do this, so I'm glad I realized. So what we want to do is take our little piece here that we made. I did 2.5 by 5, and we're going to fold it in half lengthways, just like we did for our binding. And press it, and then we're going to do that same thing by folding our sides together into the middle like this, and then folding it again. See how that gets rid of all of our raw edges? Okay, so when you're done, you should be able to unfold it like this. Okay, we're going to keep it folded, but that just shows you how we folded it. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and stitch just to hold my layers together here, right along the edge here and right along the edge here, okay? All right, see how I got that all finished? So now I'm gonna take my pot holder, and my binding is almost done here, right? So I'm gonna take this, don't worry if your edges are a little wacky, and I'm just gonna fold it to make a loop, okay? And I'm gonna slip that in right before I finish my binding, okay? Just to make that loop. And I think that is a little bit long actually. So I'm going to trim that. I don't need it that long. These are not the best scissors for this. Okay. So make my loop, and feed it in right here. And now I'm just going to stitch over it with my binding exactly like I was going to do anyways. Does that make sense? So I'll go ahead and pin this. Make sure it's centered. Whoops. And pin it in place. So now it's going to be, he's going to have a loop to hang from, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and finish my binding just the way I was going to. All right, and there you go. I've got some stray threads I need to trim, but we are done. All right, you guys, what do you think? Look at our adorable pot holder. So cute, so giftable, so ready for Christmas. And you just made a full quilt. Did you know that? Every step that you just did was exactly the steps that you would do to make a full-size quilt. So it doesn't even matter how big. You could make a king-size quilt for your bed and you'd be doing all these same steps. You'd be piecing your fabric together, well, cutting your fabric, piecing your fabric, pressing your fabric, joining your blocks together, then you're gonna layer it into a quilt sandwich, quilt it, and bind it. That's it. You just did the whole thing. So you should be so proud of yourself. You just made a quilt. And I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. If you love tutorials like this, I do plenty of tutorials on my YouTube channel. I'm the Ginger Quilter on YouTube. I'd love to see you over there. If you are a quilter who loves quilting and you're just ready for a monthly delivery of a quilt kit every month, then go ahead and join the Ginger Quilter box. That is my subscription box that comes every month, and we do a complete kit that comes for a quilt project, whether it's a quilt, pillow, table runner. That's what we like to do. The point is that all the fabric comes for you so that you don't have to get stuck up in decision fatigue, and you can really just open the box, sit down, and sew. Because the point for quilting, at least for me and probably for all the quilters out there too, is my sanity. And it's because I enjoy the process and it helps me be a better mom when I've fed into my own creativity and given myself a little bit of me time. So that is the point of the Ginger Quilter box. I hope you'll give it a look. Go to gingerquilterbox.com where you can find that. And if you're just dipping your toe into quilting, make sure you follow me on YouTube, and I hope that you'll enjoy this tutorial and all the other ones that you find there. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Natalie Pratt, and I approve this message. No, I had a lot of fun with you guys today. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.